Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. There are just so many times that I have an idea for a video and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a simple video. It's just going to be like a couple tabs that I have open. And as you can see, I have more than just a couple tabs open. And it usually turns out complicated with a lot of things to think about and talk about. But I got this email from Shannon, subject line, visitation, army marching across the sky. Shannon is the one that sent me all those visions and visitations. There's like a previous email that had like 5 of them. There's one I haven't been able to verify myself or get to the original source. I'm still working on that, but she sent me this new one. In fact, I got an email from her and somebody else. Let me just read what she said. Hey, Jared, this is one of my very, very favorite stories of angels. Perhaps you've read it. If not, you are in for a treat. Reading this actually answered many questions that I had been praying about with regards to some dreams/visions I had from things I saw with regards to battles that happened during the Restoration and the spiritual wars that are happening now. And then she provides sources and quotes. We're going to go to the original sources here. And what's really interesting, one of the reasons why this became a longer or more complicated video than I planned on is something similar happened recently in Jerusalem at the Temple Mount. What we're about to read, it takes place on the day that Joseph Smith received the gold plates. Okay. And it had to do with like warfare and combat and like this vision that was seen. And something recently happened. And when I say recent, I mean 2018, happened in Jerusalem on the Temple Mount, where there was like a similar thing in a very basically identical interpretation of what was seen. And what was seen in Jerusalem was caught on film, or it was recorded. And I have the YouTube video in case you missed the videos that I did where I talked about it, or you haven't seen it. So I was really excited when I saw this connection between our church and the day that Joseph Smith received the gold plates, and then this thing that happened in Jerusalem. And it happened on a significant day. That's another part of it too. I realized the day that it happened on in how it relates to potentially to the war that Israel's in right now. So thank you, Shannon. Keep them coming. And I got this email. This is from Dennis Long, Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball's Night Vision of Heavenly Army, Fulfilled Prophecy. And he sent this to me just a couple hours ago. So I wasn't even aware of this email. So it's like another one of those things where a couple of people both sent me the same thing. It's weird how it works out. So he says, Jared, you do so much investigative work and compilation. I cannot keep up with your great treasure trove of knowledge and truth you have amassed. No one can, Dennis. I can't even keep up with it. It's just going to keep coming. So remember, everybody, you have access to my spreadsheets. If I talk about something on the channel, a lot of times I have that on my spreadsheets. The one that we're talking about right now, the story that we're going to talk about, it's on this spreadsheet called Timeline, Visions, and Visitations. And this is actually a pretty key one from my point of view, because at least as of right now, this is the first vision that I have. These are all in chronological order. This is the first one that I have that was viewed or seen or experienced by someone other than Joseph Smith. And it was a group of people: Brigham Young, his wife, Miriam Angeline, Heber C. Kimball, and his wife, Violet Murray, and then John P. Green, Fanny Young, which was Brigham Young's sister, John Young. I'm not sure if that's her husband or... No, it wouldn't be. Maybe it's Brigham Young's. I don't know who it is. And then Rhoda Green. So a number of people that saw what we're about to read. Everything before this point was Joseph Smith. You know, you had the first vision, and then his first meeting with the angel Moroni, which happened to be during the Feast of Tabernacles. It was on Sukkot 2, or the second day of the Feast of Tabernacles. And then the next day, Sukkot 3. And then it was supposed to be from that day, the 22nd of September, that he met with the angel Moroni once every year on the same day. So the next year, in 1824, it was the eve of Rosh Hashanah, or at sundown, it was Rosh Hashanah on that day. And then the next year, it was Yom Kippur. The next year, it was not during a feast day or a holiday. Remember, the Hebrew calendar is a lunar calendar, so it doesn't match up with the solar calendar. And then the next year, in the final time, it was Rosh Hashanah. And we've talked about that. It's the Feast of Trumpets. And we've talked about the symbolism of the Book of Mormon being like a warning call in this last dispensation, and how Jews all around the world in synagogues were, sounding the shofar, which is like a call to repentance. It's a warning call in preparation for Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Okay, so on that day or that night, that's when this took place. Okay. But back to Dennis's email really quick. I'm not sure if you have this incident above in your spreadsheet of prophecies fulfilled / visions, etc. The full story is an article in the October 2007 Ensign, Living in a Chapter of History by Marjorie Rice. It details the remarkable vision that Brigham and Heber had on the same night and by the way, it was from different cities. On the same night, in the sky of a huge army marching across the heavens. Earlier the same day, Joseph Smith received the gold plates from Angel Moroni. At that time, none of the three men had met yet. Their destiny awaited them. This to me sounds like a fulfillment of what would later be described as D&C 5:14, with reference also to Revelation 12, verse 1, and Isaiah 66:7. And to none else will I grant this power to receive this same testimony among this generation, in this, the beginning of the rising up and the coming forth of my church out of the wilderness, clear as the moon and fair as the sun and terrible as an army with banners. Yeah, that is really interesting to think about, because that's what they saw. They saw like an army in the sky. And something similar happened in Jerusalem in 2018, and I'll get to that. All right, continuing. Thanks for all the great work you put out. Okay. Thanks for all the great work you put out that enlightens so many of us. Aloha, Dennis Young. Aloha, Dennis. And thank both of you for your emails. Okay, so I have talked about this before. 9 months ago, I did this video called The Night the Stars Fell in Jackson County and Other Strange Occurrences. And one of those was what we're about to read. You might want to watch this. This actually has another vision that I'm going to cover again in the future, because at the time that I did this video, I wasn't keeping this spreadsheet. And no, this is not Christian Fire Poppy right here. Somebody's like, oh, cool, you have Christian Fire Poppy as part of your thumbnail. That cracked me up. Okay, so yeah, I was aware of this story. I've already done a video about it, but now I'm putting it on the spreadsheet, and I'm getting both accounts because there's two accounts, one from Heber C. Kimball, one from Brigham Young. Okay, so here is the Ensign article. I'm not going to be reading from this, but it gives more information about like this particular area, because it's the story of Marjorie H. Rice, who had moved there and learned all this historic stuff about where they had moved. So there's that. This account right here, a meeting at Tomlinson Inn, where Samuel Smith, Joseph Smith's brother, went, and he was like trying to get people to take the Book of Mormon. That's recorded here in Millennial Star, but I'm not going to go over that. But in case you're interested, here's the original source. We're first going to go to this book called Life of Heber C. Kimball. This is a book I've visited many times because there are many, many gems contained therein, and this is one of them. Okay, so this is by Orson F. Whitney. Basically, he compiled a bunch of stuff from Heber C. Kimball, 1888. Okay, so we're going to go to page 31, and here we go. Let me close out of that, and let's zoom in. Okay, it was the eventful night of September 22nd, 1827. Again, that's the day that Joseph Smith received the gold plates, earlier in the day. Says Heber C. Kimball, quote, I had retired to bed when John P. Green, who was living within 100 steps of my house, came and waked me up, calling upon me to come out and behold the scenery in the heavens. I woke up and called my wife and sister Fanny Young, sister to Brigham Young, who was living with us, and we went out of doors. It was one of the most beautiful starlight nights, so clear that we could see to pick up a pin. We looked to the eastern horizon. Now, this is a key detail. Excuse me. When we started talking, when we started talking about what happened in Jerusalem. So they saw it in the east, okay, the eastern horizon, and beheld a white smoke arise toward the heavens. As it ascended, it formed itself into a belt and made a noise like the sound of a mighty wind, and continued southwest, forming a regular bow, like a rainbow shape, forming a regular bow dipping in the western horizon. After the bow had formed, it began to widen out and grow clear and transparent, of a bluish cast. It grew wide enough to contain 12 men abreast. In this bow, an army moved, commencing from the east and marching to the west. They continued marching until they reached the western horizon. They moved in platoons and walked so close that the rear ranks trod in the steps of their file leaders until the whole bow was literally crowded with soldiers. Now, let me just stop right here. That's how you know that this is like a miraculous manifestation, that soldiers are marching that well, because that's basically impossible in real life. We could distinctly see the muskets, bayonets, and knapsacks of the men, who wore caps and feathers like those used by the American soldiers in the last war with Britain, and also saw their officers with their swords and equipage and the clashing and jingling of their implements of war, and could discover the forms and features of the men. The most profound order existed throughout the entire army. Again, let me just say that's kind of mythical. It doesn't exist in real life. I can attest to that. When the foremost man stepped, every man stepped at the same time. I could hear the steps. When the front rank reached the western horizon, a battle ensued, as we could distinctly hear the report of arms and the rush. No man could judge of my feelings when I beheld the army of men as plainly as I ever saw armies of men in the flesh. It seemed as though every hair of my head was alive. This scenery was gazed upon for hours until it began to disappear. After I became acquainted with Mormonism, I learned that this took place the same evening that Joseph Smith received the records of the Book of Mormon from the angel Moroni, who had held those records in his possession. John Young Sr. and John P. Green's wife, Rhoda, were also witnesses. My wife, being frightened at what she saw, said, "Father Young, what does all this mean?" "Why, it's one of the signs of the coming of the Son of Man," he replied, in a lively, pleased manner. The next night, similar scenery was beheld in the west by the neighbors, representing armies of men who were engaged in battle. So let's just stop right there. So this happened for 2 nights in a row. Let's do it like this. Let's go to the spreadsheet. So I don't know. It's just kind of weird. So back in 1823, on this first day of Angel Moroni visiting with Joseph Smith, that was the 21st. And then the second day was September 22nd. And that was the day that he went every year to the Hill Cumorah. And then that was the evening that the first time this vision unfolded. And then the next day, on the 23rd of September of 1827, it happened again. I don't know. I'm just pointing that out. It's just kind of weird how it's like 1, 2, 3, or it's like, I don't know. It's just interesting. I don't know what to like make of that, but there's some kind of order to things. If you have any thoughts, put it in the comments below. Okay. So a wonderful foreshadowing, truly, of the warfare to be waged between the powers of good and evil. Pay attention to this phrase right here, because this was just repeated almost like word for word in 2018 in Jerusalem. A wonderful foreshadowing, truly, of the warfare to be waged between the powers of good and evil from the time truth sprang from earth and righteousness looked down from heaven upon the boy Joseph, predestined to bring to light the buried records of the past. Yeah, and that's basically where the story ends. Okay, so that's Heber C. Kimball's account. There is an account from Brigham Young, and you can find it here. Now, in the Ensign article, it has some of it here, but it's like less than what the Interpreter Foundation has on their website. They do provide the source, but unfortunately, it takes you to this, and it's not transcribed or anything like that. It's not searchable, so I wasn't about to go through 28 pages, and well, I actually I started to. But then I quickly realized I'm probably not going to find what I'm looking for. It would take me like probably a couple hours. Well, I don't know how long it would take, but you can see that this is hard to read. I wasn't about to do all that. So for now, we're just going to go with the Interpreter Foundation and what they have written down. Okay, so this is Brigham Young. The night the plates were found, there was a great light in the east, and it went to the west, and it was very bright, although there was no moon at the time. I gazed at it in company with my wife. The light was perfectly clear. It remained several hours. It formed into men as if there were great armies in the west, and I then saw in the northwest armies of men come up. It was a very remarkable occurrence. So if you want to refer to that again, come to my spreadsheet. The link is in the description box of each video. It's best if you do this on a desktop or a laptop. But you come here and you just double click on this under column K. This is where you can find the accounts. If you want to refer to it again, I have the references with each one. So I have both of those accounts in this cell right here. Okay. So that's what I got. Okay, so now let's start talking about, this made me think, and I hadn't made this connection before. This made me think about what happened in Jerusalem on the Temple Mount in 2018. Here's a picture of it. So there's a picture, but you also have this video that you can go watch. This is by Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz. He's the one that I interviewed. I've interviewed him a couple times, most recently about the red heifers, because he's in contact with the Temple Institute. He knows what's going on. But he has this on this YouTube channel. He started another one, but this is just like the raw video of what they saw. There were a group of Jews right here praying or doing some kind of thing on the Mount of Olives. I think they were praying. And as this was going on the other side of the valley, there was this strange mist that rose up, and it hasn't been explained. I have the account of that. I also have a spreadsheet. This is the one that I was looking for. If you saw my recent video, I was like, I know that I have a spreadsheet that has all these signs that are like Jewish specific. I just had it named something different, but I renamed it. So now it's called Signs Jewish Specific. They have been receiving a lot of signs that I feel like are tailored for them. And what we're looking at today is this one. This is the 29th of September, 2018, the 7th day of the Feast of Tabernacles, which has a special name. It's called Hoshana Rabbah. Okay. So I have all the references here if you want to check, and you can look at all these things that we've already covered. Or you can watch this video. I put it out 10 months ago. And if you want to watch it, it really is worth your time. I promise you. I'll put the link for both of these videos in the description box below. Okay, so what happened? Look at this. Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz, he's the one that wrote this. Rabbi, strange mist on Temple Mount is war on spiritual plane. This is really interesting. It's like they almost had like their own kind of version of this. Not that like there was scripture coming out, but let me show you the day that this started or that this happened. Okay. and how it relates to potentially the second coming and what's going on right now. On Sunday, a group of Jews praying on the Mount of Olives witnessed a large white cloud rise up out of the ground from the Temple Mount. The phenomenon was recorded by Josh Wander, a Mount of Olives resident. A sunrise prayer session was organized on a plaza overlooking the Temple Mount for the holiday of Hoshana Rabbah, the last day of the week-long holiday of Sukkot, or Feast of Tabernacles. Quote, just after sunrise, I was recording a Facebook Live video of the prayers when I panned my camera to the Temple Mount, Wander told Breaking Israel News. That's what Israel 365 used to be called. Continuing, all of a sudden, I noticed a cloud or fog that erupted from the northeast. Remember the vision that we just read? It was like the troops went from east to west. I noticed a cloud or fog that erupted from the northeastern corner of the mount. It seemed to be coming from the area which was designated for women in the time of the temple and the eastern gateway, which confused me since I know that today it is an orchard of olive trees and there is normally no activity there, end quote. The balcony of Wander's home overlooks the Temple Mount, so he is intimately familiar with the scenery. He is also a regular visitor to the site and said he has never seen anything like this before. Quote, it was billowing up, so I thought some Arabs might be burning branches, but it was much too early for Arabs to be on the Temple Mount, and I didn't see any Arabs there before, during, or after, and certainly no fire. It was not just a thin mist, and the video doesn't really convey the presence of the mist. Yes, you guys, I don't know if you've tried doing this, but I have. There have been some amazing pictures that I wanted to take, but the camera just does not do a very good job picking up fog or mist. I'm sure you've had this experience, but let me know in the comments below. Have you tried to take a good picture of fog? Because it has to be pretty darn thick, and even then, you don't get the full effect. You don't. So look at this. Just imagine what this probably actually looked like in person. It was probably a lot more dramatic than this. You know how like on my title screen after the song, like the very last screen where it has my logo, my channel logo, I take a picture. I'm always taking pictures so that I can have a unique picture for the title screen for each video. And there have been some that I've been pretty upset with because it was misty and it didn't show up when I took the picture, because I like to have a good variety of pictures for my title screen. So I can totally like picture this being much more dramatic than what you see here. Let's see. It probably looked pretty crazy. When you have something like that going on at a place like the Temple Mount, I think that you should pay attention. All right, let's continue. Wander reluctantly described the mist with a word he rarely uses. Quote unquote, it looked supernatural, he said. Not trusting his own eyes, Wander asked the people around him if they could also see the mist. Most were immersed in their holiday prayers and had not noticed, but when it was pointed out, they confirmed the mist's presence. The phenomenon lingered on the ground around the Golden Dome for more than 20 minutes. I am certainly not the kind of person who sees signs in nature, Wander said, but this was just too out of the ordinary to ignore. It looked eerie, and the location, the site of the Holy of Holies, is too significant. When Rabbi Yosef Berger heard of the sighting, he responded with equanimity. Quote, if he had told me that it happened any other day of the year, I would not have assigned any significance, Rabbi Berger told Breaking Israel News. But to have this cloud appear on Hoshana Rabbah is highly significant and makes me happy knowing that Gula, or redemption, or it's basically like it's the second coming. It's what it's going to be. It's when the Jews are saved, when Mashiach appears and initiates the Messianic era of 1,000 years. So it's the millennium. So But to have this cloud appear on Hoshana Rabbah is highly significant and makes me happy knowing that Gula, or redemption, is at hand. It is written in the Midrash Talpiot that the war of Gog and Magog will happen 3 hours before the dawn on Hoshana Rabbah. The battle will last 3 hours, and then the Mashiach will begin to appear. Of course, this war is accompanied by flames and smoke, as was hinted at in the Psalms. And they put that, this is like the Jewish translation, Psalms 46, 4-6. Hashem, which is the name, or you could say the Lord, is in its midst. It will not be toppled by daybreak. He puts a stop to wars throughout the earth, breaking the bow, snapping the spear, consigning wagons to the flames. Now, before I continue here, let's take a look at the Hebrew calendar, okay? So we're going to look at October of last year, 2023. So hopefully you know, if you've been watching my channel, you should know that the war started on the 7th of October, which was, you could see it as like the very last day of the Feast of Tabernacles. The Feast of Tabernacles goes from Sukkot 1 to Sukkot 7, but then you have kind of like a tail end day that's celebrated. The entire thing is supposed to be for the nations. Like if the temple was functioning right now, like the third temple, if they were doing animal sacrifices, there's sacrifices that they do for the nations of, I think it's 50 bulls, or maybe it's 70 bulls, for the 70 nations. But then the last day, the like 8th day, so to speak, is just for the Jews. It's like God has had this like week of celebration, and then it's like, okay, now you're my people, and we're having like a special day together. So that's the day that Hamas attacked. But the day before is Hoshana Rabbah, the one that we're talking about. Okay? So on the Hebrew calendar, not the solar calendar, but on the Hebrew calendar, let me do my math here. 5 years after that mist appeared, 5 years and 1 day, that's when the war started. The war that could be the final war. It's still going on. Nobody knows how it's going to end. Nobody knows, but there's lots and lots of potential for escalation. Okay, mist appears. Rabbi interprets it as, oh, this is potentially a sign of warfare on the spiritual plane. But exactly 5 years later, plus 1 day, that's when an actual war starts, the day after Hoshana Rabbah. So I think there could be something to it. And I feel like this is similar to that night, the night of when Joseph Smith received the gold plates. You had war imagery there. It was in a way that they could understand. You know, they had like contemporary soldiers, like American Revolutionary looking soldiers. But I think the Lord, again, he does things in a way that we can understand. You know, he's not going to put modern day soldiers in the sky. They would probably be confused a little bit, like, where's their swords, or what kind of weapons are those? But warfare imagery on the day that the gold plates were given to Joseph Smith, and warfare imagery almost exactly 5 years before the war started, in imagery on the Temple Mount. That's a really cool parallel. That is really, really cool. Okay, continuing. This is the rabbi continuing. It very well could be that a major battle was being waged on the Temple Mount, on the spiritual plane, and the only part of it that we could see was the smoke. It has been clear all year that a war is being waged for the Temple Mount. Well, Rabbi, and exactly 5 years later, there would be a very serious war that would break out. Okay, smoke is only one aspect of the war, an illusion that we can see with our eyes, while the real battle is being waged on planes we cannot see. The real battle goes much deeper. We may be seeing other aspects of the battle in the near future. Yep, 5 years later. During Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles, we read about Gog and Magog in the Haftarah, a section of the Bible usually from the prophets, read in the synagogue that is thematically linked to the Torah reading. They have like a yearly reading cycle of reading, the Tanakh, the Old Testament. On Pesach, or Passover, we read as the Haftarah Ezekiel's vision of the dry bones. The war begins on the last day of Sukkot, and the resurrection begins on Pesach. So, I don't know. If that turns out to be true, then yeah, certainly the war did begin on that last, unofficial day of the Feast of Tabernacles. It's called, in the diaspora, they have it as 2 days. There's Shemini Atzolet and Simchat Torah, but in Israel, those two are on the same day. It's on the 8th day. Okay. Rabbi Berger noted that Hoshana Rabbah is the day of judgment for the nations. And that's it. So, yeah, that took a turn. But again, thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Dennis, for your emails. Thank you for helping me, get these things down. I may have forgotten about it, but thank you for reminding me so I can put it down on my spreadsheet. These are amazing things. Okay, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.